Death be not proud.
Alright, you bundles of sticks, Holy Diver here. I'm going to attempt to paint a Dwarf Slayer for you. So the first thing I did was I painted the entire model scorched brown, or charred brown from the game color line. I'm going to be working with a lot of reds, and then I'm going to highlight that red up to orange. And then I'm also going to be working with a lot of flesh tones. So this is a really good color to start with when you're working with those two colors, when you're working with orange and red and flesh tone. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take Mephiston Red, give that a little shake, and we are going to use, where is it? My Reaper Pro 2, and we're going to do his beard up with red. That's going to be the first step here. I do want to thin that red out just a little bit. I've already done one today, but what I'm thinking here is that I can do one up on camera for you. And if this works and my analytics go crazy, like let's say I get 60 likes inside of an hour on this video, I might do some historical miniature painting on the channel. So we're gonna go around. This is gonna be kind of a messy thing. This is a lot like doing the armor on a knight or something. You're gonna make his mohawk red, and that's straight from scorched brown. Now, there's a number of ways to do orange. You can wash to orange and everything. A lot of people would spray paint these guys white because of the orange. You don't really need to do that. You can still go from black to orange relatively easily if you just use this process. Maybe a little bit more thinned down water there. And let's see here. What do we got? Oh, still going strong on the mohawk. A little too much there, but that's okay. We can work it into the hair, and you want to work that brown onto the model. And the red is just kind of a very messy part, so we're not too worried about the skin. We're not too worried about any of the other details. We got to get his big beard done, and he's got a mustache. I really like these old classic Citadel models and everything. For one reason, they just have a lot more class than the new ones. I think the new Dwarf Fire Slayers, they're kind of ridiculous. They're like almost as tall as a Savage Orc from the mohawk alone. And it's like, no, they're kind of a stupid miniature if you ask me, in my opinion. I mean, if that's your thing, I mean, if you think they're cool, yeah, then more power to you, but I don't think that they're that cool. I don't think that they're that good. And yeah, I think that you could do better. And the problem I have with those dwarfs is that they're not so miniatured. Games Workshop is not being shy about scaling up the miniature size. They've gone from 25mm heroic to a full-on 32 with a lot of the miniatures. And those Dwarf Slayers, they're a full-on 32mm dwarf. That's a 32mm miniature. It's not a 25. Those things are big. They're chubby too. Big and chubby dwarfs. So let's see here. There we go. Let's get that on. Oh, he's even got some hair right there. So this is the easy part, just getting the red on. And then the next step will be to do the dwarf flesh. But as you can see, I'm not being shy with the red. I'm going right for the throat on this stuff, and I'm dry brushing it on. And this guy, he's got bare feet, so we won't have to worry too much about. And let's see. He's only got one little leather bag and one little leather strap that you can see, so we won't have to worry too much about flesh. The hard part will be doing the orange. The orange is always a little bit hard, but it's never really ever that bad. So I think that's his red. I do want to work the red out of my brush. So I do that. See how much was left in there? You want to work the red out of your brush. So you gotta, and I use 2 pots of water. As a lot of people who have followed the channel for a while know, I have dirty water, cleaner water. So that was red. Next we're going to be working with one of the really good colors from the Citadel range, Bugman's Glow. This is a good color. And what we're going to do because we're going to do his flesh next. But we do want to thin this down a little bit because it can go on quite thickly. But it's a really, really easy color to work with, and if you're a beginner painter and you are struggling to do flesh tones, I say start with brown and Bugman's Glow. Bugman's Glow is one coat, no problem. So let's see here. We're going to go with his knuckles here. Do one side and work our way towards the other side. One of the things you got to kind of watch out for is the mohawk. You don't want to get a lot of this stuff on the mohawk, and you don't want to get this stuff on the facial hair at all either. We're not going to be painting his eyes. There's really no point to that, but we are going to need to get his cheeks done. We are going to need to work down and get inside the miniature a little bit, get the ears done, and you work your way down one side of the face and everything. And I hope this comes in a little better. Plus, if I edit a full video and everything, I've done several rough drafts of trying to do this, and I think I've finally got it wired into where I need to be and everything with the miniature, with my body. One thing I know what I can't do is I can't do two cameras. I can't have one camera on me. I can't talk to the camera while I do this. There are some talents out there that can, but I can't. I can't have myself in a thumbnail talking to you because I'm 100% focused on what I'm doing. And right now, I'm really focused on getting this flesh on. I'm going to need to take him over here, take him up a little bit. We got to do his lip. He's got a lip in there. And that's just a detail that needs to get done, and you can actually see one or two of his teeth in there. So we're gonna probably want to paint those. We're gonna go for his belly next. Who's got your belly? I got your belly. But this should be a really easy thing to do, painting a dwarf up. I have other projects open, like I need to get to a Firestorm Armada project before somebody kills me. Plus, I kind of like the game. I do like the game mechanics of that and everything. Ship-to-ship combat. I just don't do space as well as other people. A lot of people they're really into space, and I'm not into space. Hold on, I gotta focus for one little second there. I just don't do space that well. I like fantasy, I like historics, but space is a good break. And I was always talking to my friend, if you want to do space, Mike, we can always play AVP. But I'm going to get those guys done. They're gonna, but Retributor armor costs, so I have to change my paint scheme because I'm not spending $28 on a can of gold paint. That's the big number one right there. Not spending $28 on a can of gold paint. But let's see here. Yeah, I'm going to work our... So it looks like his pants are covering his back. Yeah. So we're going to work our way down the other side of the face. And I think we can access that from here. Yeah, I have to look at it this way for a second. There are some odd angles on these older miniatures, but that's expected. But Slayers, they've always been one of my favorite units and everything, mostly because of the Unbreakable rule, and now that I've been reading the Dwarf book and everything, problem is that the biggest problem that Citadel Dwarfs had is that they never had any cavalry, and they were all movement 3. They were all movement 3. I really think that one of the things you could have done to fix the Dwarf book was to give them free scouting on their infantry units. Okay, so it's like we can take a 3-inch movement before the game begins to kind of reposition to get ourselves ready, which I don't think would have been too broken, considering the fact that you can only march up to 6. So if you could take a free 3-inch movement at the beginning of the game and you forfeit the first, and then you roll off to see who gets first turn, I think that would have helped them out tremendously. But not having cavalry and just having a static line of guys, they're sneaky that way. We're just about ready to finish off the flesh here, which is good, in my opinion. Let's see. Is there any other... We might have to take a little brush in there and just put a little bit of flesh in that. That's the only drawback, is that you can't do the whole miniature with just one to two brushes. You got to go for little stuff here. So... Pants... His armpit, and you don't need to I'm gonna water some down and get in there. And then we'll shade away from it. Alright, yeah, that's okay. We can always go put the red back on, but yeah, that needs to get done. And then he's got a ridiculous little belt buckle right there, but that's okay. Get all that in there, and we'll just fill that in with paint. Filling in all the cracks on this. I thought I put a good coat of brown on them, but clearly I didn't. But that's okay. But his face and his arms, every part of flesh on him is pretty much done. Alright, here we go. Next color we're going to need is, well, why don't we go ahead and do his axe, and one of the metals I've been using, I picked up to use, is Chainmail Air by Game Color. This is Game Air, really good color. I'm using exclusively this on all of my metallics. I just need two little drops, and we'll just take his axe out really quick while some of that flesh dries and everything. You always want to kind of constantly be working and all that. I've already painted up one today, and I want to try to get to 1, 2, 3, 4, and that'll be the whole unit. I was debating on whether or not to buy more of these guys, simply because Unbreakable, and the dwarfs need that. And where these guys are going to be positioned, they're going to be positioned on the extreme. So you have your fighty bricks of dwarves, the dwarves that will do all the fighting and do that have the let's just say the units that deliver the Thanes and the dwarf lords and have the characters in there to help you do a little bit more combat damage, and the ones that will have all the numbers. This unit's going to be out on the periphery on one side, kind of hemming you away from my flanks. Towards the center, because fast cavalry can't break unbreakable units. Knights can. These guys don't have a chance at hell at beating any of the knights. But they're just there to kind of hem you towards my center and make you think twice before putting my cavalry out there, because what I'm going to do is they're going to be supported with a unit of great weapon axes, and then and that's just 100 points for 10 dwarfs with great weapons, and it's another 5 to give them a musician. So that's pretty good trade-off right there. And then they're going to be supported on the extreme flank of that with a unit of crossbowmen to counter battery fast shooting and moving cavalry. So Gnarls green for the pants. Pants are all going to be green. But yeah, I do want to have an element of the Slayers in the army. I think that the fluff is just awesome there. And you gotta have Slayers in a dwarf army. There was a unit I didn't really see. Now you go back to the time of when fantasy was a thing and everything, and everybody was just bringing gunline armies, and I slowly over time learned how to combat it. Like I said, I would bring 5 units of fast goblin cavalry if I had to. Now I have too much MSU on the table for you to do anything against, and I'm going to shut down some of your war machines before you do anything. And you might only do 2 wounds with your crossbowmen because you went war machine heavy, because what do you call it? The guys with the handguns, they stacked up on points relatively quickly, but they were +1 to hit. Yeah. Pants are a little bit tricky, but they're less tricky because you can just sort of paint down. We're painting the pants first, then we're gonna go back to Bugman's Glow for the pants as soon as we're done here. For the feet, we got to do the feet. We didn't do up the feet. Feet. He needs feet. Yeah, he's got that big old. He's got pantaloons, so. All of that is pant right there. But if this works, and like I said, I've been tweaking these videos over the course of time whenever I got time, and I've always wanted to do a lot of tutorials. If this works, I'll throw some Macedonians in next, but you got to support this video with your likes. That's the deal that I'm going to make with you, my usual viewers. that if you want to see me paint Macedonians, you got to support this video with your likes and your comments. So hopefully that'll be something we can allude to, and I'll show you the secret to Greek hoplites and everything. So that's pretty much by and large his pants. We're not going to put this color away just yet. We're going to need Io-Sand green and Gnarls green to highlight the pants, but what we are going to do is we're going to go back to Bugman's Glow, and we're going to get Homeboy's feet real quick. And I'm not even going to thin this down because it's just going to go down on the base anyway, and you can pull this paint towards the base, but I do need it to be a little bit better than that. So, let's see here. I'm going to go for Homeboy's feet. And, yeah, working out where the camera's going to be, where I'm going to be, in a position where I'm comfortable. I've got it all blocked out, and I just haven't had the time. I never have the time. That's the biggest problem is, you know, I work 10 hours a day. Luckily, I'm off today. It's still March. And we had a small snowstorm, so jobs get canceled, and I can make these kind of videos for you. But this is what I'm hoping to do during the weekends. This and battle reports. I did meet a brand new friend who's a former Army Ranger, which is awesome, by the way, because there's only like 3,000 of those guys that do all of the fighting for the United States Army. They do. I figure, you know, 3,000 badasses is all you need. But we played a game of bolt action. And so I'm hoping to make some bolt action battle reports, and I might even do another bolt action army, but I'm not sure. I've spent a lot of money to get some dwarfs. Plus, my brother finally caved and gave me his dwarf army. My brother was a natural. I wish he'd stayed in the hobby. He painted up some Lord of the Rings miniatures with disastrous results, but then quickly mastered it very well to do his second army. Like, I can't believe how good a job he did on his dwarves. I got 76 guys from him. So, there's that. That will work. His feet are done. We can do his... so for leather, let's go for his leather. We're going to use leather brown. And we're just going to go right here. Come on, leather brown. Bam. That'll be one more little drop. This is one of my favorite colors. This thing goes on. This stuff goes on so well. You could use it as a primer if you need to. It's a really, 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 really good color. Plus, it's a good standalone leather color. And since this guy is wearing a belt, what we're going to do is we're going to paint the jewels and the entire belt as best we can. Because then we have to go back and we have to do the pants and everything. And he's got braids in his beard and everything, so that's pretty good. Let's see, can we see his belt? Yeah, we can see his belt, so we're just going to take a line of leather. Oh, too much. We'll have to do his bag real quick. And this guy's wearing a lot of gold, too. We're not quite ready for gold. But there's a formula for everything, and I've got these guys down to a science. And then let's see here. We can cover up a little bit, put a little leather brown and get rid of some of that red before we put our Xandri on. When you got red there, you just cover it up with this leather brown before you put your Xandri on your axe shaft. There, that ought to work. Alright, now, let's see what we can do. There we go. All the leather on this miniature is done. Let's do his pants up real quick and get that done. Simply because it's just the next easiest step to get to. It's kind of a waste of leather to do that, but there isn't a lot of leather on these guys to begin with anyhow. So we've got the Io-Sand green out, and then we got the Gnarls green back out, and this is just going to be a very, very quick 50-50 mix. Because one of the hard parts is collecting older ranges for the Citadel range. People are fucking stingy as all hell. I couldn't get a runesmith, so I got this guy from Reaper. There you go. The only problem with him is that his head's proportional to his body, and Citadel miniatures aren't made that way. They weren't made that way back in the day, and now Citadel miniatures are way too frickin' big, and that's one problem I have with Age of Sigmar. Okay, the biggest problem I had is that it lowered the bar and allowed everybody and their mother, the kind of fucking soy boys that cry at Star Wars trailers, it allowed all those guys to come into the hobby, and then they don't want to stick around to develop their hobby muscle. And the problem is it lowers the bar of what you need to get in. And then the next big problem I have is that it unfortunately raised every single painting expectation, which isn't really that good in my opinion. The expectations for painting, in my opinion, are very, very high in Citadel-oriented games these days. And so a lot of people rage quit over the hobby because they don't have, their skills aren't, and most skills just have to be developed. You have to work up to it. But hopefully you can get a few tips and tricks from me, because I still have yet to find professional painters who have done more armies, full armies than I have. You know, I'm working right now. I just off the top of my head, I've done six Bretonnian armies, 5 different undead armies. That's 11 armies, just right there off the top of my head that I've done. I mean, most people have never even painted that amount of armies. I mean, I've also done Necrons, I've done Salamanders, I've done Grey Knights. Let's see what other 40... I had Word Bearers, but I never finished them. And then I've done a couple... Hold on, I gotta get this little itty bitty detail right here. I've also done... well, I don't count anything under 1,000 points. Ooh, he's got the crotch gap there. There we go. Boom. Yeah, some of these guys, they have that little... There. So, his pants look to be all the way done. All the way done. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to clean up the red just a little bit with a little bit of orange and bring that next shade up. But for all intents and purposes, the green is done. But we are going to have to play with his red just a little bit, because those were some messy pants. Let's see what else we've got down there. Yeah, we just got hair, and we got a couple gems, which I'm just going to paint gold. Let's hurry up and do his... Let's hurry up and do his axe real fast, which is just straight up Xandri dust. We'll do the shaft of his axe, and you can see I'm working through this one guy really quickly. Usually what I do with these guys, good thing about these Slayers and these older Citadel models, they're very easy to do 2 at a time. 2 at a time, casually, here and there. I'm going to do the axe. Boom, boom. And I do kind of want to stay away from the axe when I do the hair. That's okay. If I wanted to, I could just leave it leather brown and then do a little bit of corn red on it, but we're going to do it this way. But I still got some out. Cool. And this is just a good thing to use on shafts for like spears and everything, not to mention axe handles. So that's one step completely done. We can just get a little bit more of that out. Hopefully I have enough there from the last guy I did from... Nope, nothing. Not a... That was a blob of desert yellow. So Xandri dust and desert yellow highlight. There's not too much to highlight on this axe, but it does look good once you wash the axe. But yeah, raising the expectations of how armies look, I think is a big mistake in my opinion, because there are other cheaper Miniatures, I mean, if I was going to recommend anything now, if I was going to recommend new hobby to the beginners, I would say do 15mm Flames of War. Start there because it's very easy. It's just, I mean, it's hard to, but have somebody help you build it the first time around. But thinking about that, because everything has a set color of paint, and those paints aren't hard to work with. So that's huge. So the next color we're going to work on is his, we're going to bring his hair up just a little bit, so we're going to get just a dot or two of them based on, but we are going to break out our Troll Slayer orange. So we're taking our Mephistodon and our Troll Slayer, and we're just going to bring up his beard just a little bit. He's got some parts on here I got to kind of do real fast. Might want that to be a 2-to-1. Yeah, that helps. Oh, I guess I'll have to keep bringing it in. Fuck you too. How about that? Bam. But it's just for down here on his beard and everything, where the pants got into it and everything, and I just need to make sure it's up one shade from where it used to be. It's on these lower portions. And we're going to work it in there a little bit. This will kind of make some mustard catch-up nightmare. But it makes the orange easier to control towards the flesh, and that's why I did it. And in this little crevice right here, whereas I don't know how well you'll see in there, in that little crevice. Cool thing about this camera, I found out the lens is just awesome. Having a wide angle lens doing this, really good. Another thing I like about the dwarves is you got high weapon skill at least. It makes them harder to hit, but seems like whenever I played them and they were a combat-oriented army and they had some shooting backing them up, I had a lot of trouble because I could never hit them with my Bretonnians to save my life. Oh, look at that. I needed 4s, and look at all that flubbage. I failed. Even my Paladin missed. You know, and he's one higher weapon skill than them. Or, you know, but they got a lot of special choices that are weapon skill 5 and everything. There we go. That ought to work. Now we can go straight to orange, which will help out. Straight to orange, which will help out, and if we need to, we can mix the orange with Skull White or Elf Flesh and really pop it. Really just kind of pop it. Those dirty gingers will give the goblins a good fight. Come on. Alright, here we go. And what I do is I just work my way up. I work my way up. Out, away from the flesh. Again. We're just going to dry brush it now. Even though the brush is still kind of wet, but you do want some of those bolder lines that you're getting on your orange there and everything. And then you got to work, and you still want it somewhat wet enough because you got to work inside that crevice right there. And you also have to touch his eyebrows with the orange, which isn't a huge deal because the eyebrows on these guys are very pronounced. But God, I just love this unit. You know, it's almost as good. My favorite old school Citadel Dwarf unit were the Ironbreakers, but they're a little bit too hard on the points at 13 points a guy. But they did have a 2+ armor save at strength 4, and it seemed like they always killed my knights whenever I charged them because I just couldn't hurt them, and then I couldn't make a 3+ save to save my life. Yep, I could never make a 3+ save. If you don't break them, they break you. That was the strength of the dwarfs, but the game was movement oriented, and you know, if you didn't have a decent shooting phase, which you were supposed to dominate by default, you just didn't win very many of your games. I don't think I'll turn this army into a Kings of War army. The model count and the cost of doing that is just ridiculous with some of the other with some of the other projects that I got going on this year, or want to get to this year. I just I'm not going to squeeze the coins together. I think I'm going to be done spending money on the hobby by May this year. I'm going to cut it off at May. And I'm just going to paint what I got. I'm going to paint all my pike and shot because I want to do tutorial videos and a blister here and there, but that's about it. Again, I want to kind of avoid my axe. I think I've gotten into that crevice as good as I can. But you can see just how fast that orange went on and popped. So let's see here. Missing any pieces? We're going to get a little bit of elf flesh, and we're gonna highlight the orange now. And this stuff really mixes well with orange. You can just see what that did to the orange. Hold on, let's get a little bit more on there. And we'll pop it. And then we'll be doing the rest of his flesh really quickly. Yeah, that just goes up one more shade. And you do it on the high points of the beard and everything. Really just shoots out that orange a lot better. Yeah, so you mix elf flesh with orange and you get a very, 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 very bright orange. But I do want a little bit of that red to show through. These are a bunch of dirty ginjos, as the goblins would say. But yeah, the cost of doing that, too high. And, you know, one thing I do like about Kings of War is that the miniatures are simple. They're easy to paint. They're basically all just a bunch of dry brush and wash dudes. You can go as detailed as you want, but there are just some armies out there, like goblins. Goblins is an example of an army. If you're willing to paint 210 miniatures, if you're willing to paint 210 miniatures to fill out your rabble, you deserve to win every game. I don't care. You just deserve to win every game. Oh look, I have 5 rabble units for chaff. And however you multi-base that, let me see if I even got that right off the top of my head. We're going to break out our trusty calculator here. Boom. What is that? 30 times 5. Oh, that's 150 because that's the preferred model count. And then 7 times 30. That's 210. I was right. I was just going off a preferred model count for an infantry horde, which is 30. If you're willing to paint that many guys for rabble hordes, you deserve to win a lot of your games. I'll give it to you. That's called determination, and all that for the sake of the tournaments. And I think that's one problem I have with the hobby right now is that the tournaments, the competitive scene has driven a lot of the games. I think the competitive scene for fantasy gave birth to Age of Sigmar, and that's how we got Age of Sigmar. And then the competitive scene, Facebook, and then you tap all of that to Facebook, and you let these competitive motherfuckers talk to one another, and it really did kill the hobby very, very quickly because, which, like I said, you want to be logging off of Facebook. Facebook is no good because what's his name made a really good video about how goblins won a tournament. Hobby Sauce. He made a really good video about how goblins won a tournament one time, and basically, oh, goblin war machines are broken. Goblin war machines are broken. But the guy had 7 units of rabble chaff. 7 units of rabble chaff. I mean, do you know how hard that is to break up? I mean, basically, Kings of War is like rock checkers mixed with rock, paper, scissors. You choose your matchups during deployment, and you maneuver to get better matchups, and there you basically roll your dice, and then you're like, scissors. That's it, you know. And if you're willing to bring 7 CQC chaff units to keep, because they will do damage. Rabble units will do damage. You're guaranteed at least 2 to 3 damage per unit in close combat. And let's say you didn't break them, you roll snake eyes on one of those things and they hit you and they actually do perform, they do 5 wounds to you, your horde that's 15-17 is coming out the other side, your unit that's 15-17 is coming out the other side a little bit mangled. A little bit mangled. Next color we're going to put on is trusty Dwarf Flesh. And this will be an easy color to apply. It's a very good honey of a color. Usually a good flesh triad is Bugman's Glow, Dwarf Flesh, Elf Flesh. Very good triad for people. And then you just mix a little bit of white with your elf flesh if they're going to be elves, because elves are pale faces. But we're going to work this guy from the outside, from one side to the other again. And we're going to use our Reaper Pro 2 on this. And let's get a little bit down here though. I'm going to need some to work with. I'm going to need a lot actually. I'm going to wipe that brush off one more time. I want it to be somewhat dry, somewhat wet, somewhat malleable. Because it's a very easy color to work with. We're not going to forget his feet this time. I'm going to do his feet, little feet. And we're going to get his tricep here. And we're going to go to his delts and his biceps. He's got 23-inch big biceps. I got to have them. And we're also going to wash this with strong tone. And, you know, I mean, I'm not like some hobby store badass that painted an army once and be all like, washing a miniature with strong tone ink washes for noobs. Didn't you know that? There's no, there's no badass that I'm trying to impress. I'm probably the only person who still plays 7th edition, except for Mountain Monsters, Mountain Miniatures. He did an episode of Old World Wars, and then like everybody watched it and liked it. There you go. I wish I had 1/10 of the Canadian audience, but I don't. As a matter of fact, Canadians hate me because I'm not one of the Try Guy soy boys that do this. That make it sound like Barney the dinosaur. They're the lowest audience. I have more people viewing me in Spain than I do in Canada, which is weird because Spain isn't an English-speaking country, one, but I guess if you're from Europe, you might speak English. I did have to learn Spanish for my major, and then because I had nobody to converse with, I did forget a lot of Spanish. But there was a moment there where I spoke fluently and could read pretty well, actually. You know, I figured out what I could figure out what the verb was off the top of my head and go from there. I was at a point where I could write Spanish somewhat well, but I had trouble speaking it. It was really weird. It's really weird how people learn languages. I was able to read and write first before I could actually like put that into words. That's really weird how Spanish came to me, and I wish I kept it up. I might take another class someday, but that's someday. Right now I got dwarfs to paint. I got Skull Pass that I want to paint up and everything. We're just going to go ahead and paint his eyes because I'm not painting his eyes. I'm not worried about his eyes at all. I'm not doing that. And I usually keep my dwarf flesh very thin, and I do 2 coats. Simply because you want the second coat of flesh to be thin. Alright? And then before we highlight the flesh with a mixture of dwarf flesh and elf flesh, we are going to do our gold. All of our gold's going to go on this guy. And I think this is working out a lot better. I better scooch in just a little bit. And I have the camera on the other table now, so I don't transfer any movement to the camera. And I'm able to keep my workplace clean and everything. There we go, bam. I think that's working. And I think that's just about where I want to be. That's a really hard spot to get to, but we are going to put a little bit of dwarf flesh on there. That's just a really hard spot, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to do it. This guy went up really quick. Really quick. I like this guy. We're going to name him Ernie. And he's going to be a low-tier grappler. That's what we're going to name this guy. He's going to be Ernie. And we're going to call him EVO for short. So we'll get that ready. Next paint that we're going to use, I use this on all of my bronzes and everything. This is just Retributor armor. We're going to hurry up and do his gold. And then I got to switch batteries. As usual, because I need to get new batteries for my camera. I just found out that some of these cheaper ones, they do expire, which kind of sucks. I might have to set up Yeah, I just I get a little disillusioned when I see new channels pop up into my feed every now and then. I just found out about a historical channel called Sword and Steel. It's just two chicks who do unboxing videos, and I'm like, great. They already have 19,000 subscribers. Isn't that great? How there are so many thirsty cucks out there. All you need to do is just not be a busted, ugly chick. I mean, well, in my opinion, I wouldn't date either one of them. I could do way, 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 way better anyway. But all you have to do is just be a chick and do a video, and you get money for it. There you go. That's the way our civilization works now. There we go. The gold comes in really quickly on top of that brown. Now this guy's got a little bit of a gold ring. I don't know how well you'll see that, but he's got a ring. You're gonna kiss the ring. But yeah, they've got a tip jar set up. They don't respond to any of their comments, and they're just doing it because they're attention whores. They're Insta thoughts, and you know that's one of the problems with the hobby right there. Is fake YouTube channels, which I need to do a State of the Hobby episode on. It's just a bunch of fake YouTube channels that really have no right to be there, you know. But, you know, I'm one of the few guys who doesn't run I don't run my YouTube channel like a fucking business. If I was going to run it like a business, you wouldn't hear a lot of opinions from me. You would hear my narrations, but I've learned a lot over the last 5 years that if I wanted to, I think that I could start a new channel and do it, but you can't do it with that 40K. And there aren't enough of my friends who have fully painted 40K armies to bring that to light. Not a lot of ornate decorations on the axe. We're just going to do these would-be gems up in gold. There we go. Boom. Premium Snapchat. That's all it is. Insta thoughts. They're premium Snapchats. And they don't really advance the hobby. I mean, literally, they don't have any armies to their names. They've just done some unboxing videos yet. Because they're women and they show their faces and they're not busted, they get all the viewership. They get all the viewership. You don't necessarily. That's the problem with YouTubers. It's completely one-sided and unfair. You can also pay to play. There are some channels that did that. Like Sci-Fi Wire is notorious for that. I see their ads everywhere. You can buy ad space and subscribers from YouTube, and then you know, it's all downhill from there. It's not a meritocracy. If videos like this were totally merit based, I think I would have a lot more followers. But again, I'm doing niche videos for niche parts of the hobby here. So let's see. Final gold inspection. I'm trying to see how much of his belt I can see. I can't see a lot of his belt. I just see the gems on the belt because they're all pressed together. I barely see his belt from where I painted it. I don't think we'll have to highlight too much of his what do you call it? So that's done with the Retributor. Too much of his leather. We're just going to do his leather sack with a little bit of snake bite. Then we're going to go back to flesh, and basically this guy's done. And hopefully you learned a few tips and tricks to get your dwarf out there a little bit faster into close combat. Bam! Do his little leather sack here. But you know, I always try to respond to my comments. That's the big one for me. When it's like the Warhammer 40K couple, they'll get 19 comments on a video and they don't respond to a single one of those comments. It's the biggest, fakest channel out there. Almost as fake as Sword and Steel Miniatures, and no, they don't respond to a single comment. They don't respond to a single comment. I've had hundreds of comments on videos, on some of the more controversial ones that I made. I always respond. I always try to respond to my, and then I'll even verbally spar when I want something to do. But I think the most important thing you could do is respond to your comments, and then and then they have a PayPal jar set up. They have a PayPal tip jar and a Patreon set up, and you know, that's how I know it. They want to turn y'all into a bunch of dumbass pay piggies because They don't respond to your comments, and they just want money. They just want money, which is kind of BS, but, you know, can't fault them for wanting free money. Free money from dumbasses. It's out there if you're female. So I've, as you can see, you just saw me mix my flesh up. Just going to go for some of the higher points on the, I might have to get a different brush for the feet, on the arms and everything. Just go through the fingers really quick. And oh, this guy's got another ring. We're not going to worry about that ring. You can barely see it. I've diminished it with my paint. Just glopping it on. I'm not the maniac. I just want to get, you know, a lot of people think way too much about the miniature painting process. They really do. They put too much emphasis on this kind of stuff. And you got to do this. You got to do that. It's got to look a certain way. A lot of people are like, my brushes have to be in the right order on my desk. They have to be this way. There's only one way to do it, and it has to be the perfect way every single time, which is of course BS in my opinion. But who knows? Who knows? We'll see here in a minute. With people respond well to this video, I'll start doing some historical painting tutorials, because now that I've got things figured out, it shouldn't be too hard. There, just a little bit. Now let's do his belly. Let's get his belly. Who's got your belly, buddy? Come on, Ernie. Who's got your belly? You low-tier trash. Then we're going to get his nose, his cheeks. Trying to keep this guy as flat and in frame as possible here. Let's do his forehead. Side of his big old dwarf head here. Ears, shoulders. There we go. I think we're getting somewhere now. And I really think that this guy's done. Let's get a little bit of that out, and that's it. This is your finished product. All I have to do is wash it, and that's the easy part. That's the easy part, because I already got one that I applied the wash to. So we'll do that. And the wash mixture is very simple. I use the, you only need 5 drops. 4 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll do 5, and it's 2 drops of water. 1, 2. I don't know how I instinctively know that. It just seemed to work. It seemed to work in my head. I kind of gauge the amount of wash and water I'll need for the wash based on the size of the miniature. So we're gonna get the wash all over this guy. Just gonna give him one more final inspection. Yeah, he's got a little bit of jaggedness in there, but I can't see it too well. Everything seems to be highlighted and basically ready for action. So it just depends on the wash now and what it's going to do. And you know, you got these like people who are like, oh, you still wash everything with strong tone? That's for noobs. First off, I'm not trying to impress anybody. There's no big fat badass at the hobby store lurking around saying, I painted an army once, then I went to LVO with it. You have to love me. And he's always, you know the Jabba the Hutt types that are always like holding court. There's like 6 or 7 smaller size gamers orbiting around this one big fat ass. There is a fat ass like that at one of my shops. He works at the shop for his 50% discount on miniatures, and he painted an army once. And one time I heard that fat fuck order lunch, and he ordered 5 junior bacon cheeseburgers. He ordered 5 junior bacon cheeseburgers and 2 Wendy's nuggets. I mean, Jesus Christ. And he's like 6'5", but he's a complete and total waste of human space if I ever saw one. And believe me, I've encountered a lot of waste of human space, and he's definitely one of them. But look at that. It's going. It's going. And then all we gotta do is shake it off into the goddamn garbage can. You shake your miniatures off into the garbage can. That's for noobs. That's for noobs. Do you hear me? Noobs. Brrr. Fuck him. There we go. Bam. But that is a quick little dwarf. We'll be right back after I flick him off into the garbage can. Like a noob. So the last step, you just want to make sure that you pick up any wash that's pooling too heavily in one area. And I think I got a pretty good distribution. We'll get a little bit more on his feet. Feet are dirty. Don't worry about the feet. I'm not going to do the basing yet because the entire unit isn't done. There's still 4 more Slayers to do. But I popped this guy out relatively quickly with minimal effort, and that's how I want to do it. And that's why all my shit gets painted, because I'm a wizard. I'm a wizard at this stuff. So let's see here. This is what they'll look like when the wash dries. And if I wanted to, I could re-highlight the orange. I'll show you one that I re-highlighted the orange on. And they're the front rank soldiers right here. And everything like that. Where I'm going to be rebasing these ones because I repainted them from an eBay rescue. But other than that, that's all I had to do and everything. And I think they look pretty good. And I just... little bit brighter hair, and that's it. And they have their eyes because they're up front. So, and that's usually how I did things. And then right here, I've got my finished Dragon Slayer, and I can't wait to use him. And I just like the big ass in charge mohawk they gave him and everything. And he's the Dragon Slayer. So, gotta have Slayers in a dwarf army. We'll be back.
Even you, puppy dog. Hey, you need to grow a sack!